You're listening to Pitch Me on the Heart Bandits Network. Now, here's today's pitch.
Hello and welcome everyone to Pitch Me Live. We're your host, Meg and Ted. We certainly appreciate you being here with us. Today's guest has been fighting vociferously with a relentless form of cancer that I suspect would have gotten the better of most of us, but not this guy. What he's endured, no one should have to endure. His spirit, his family, his commitment to life, I suspect is what's kept him going. We're going to hear a little bit about his story, what we can do for this gentleman. So let's get on it. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Keith Guernsey. Hi, Keith. How are you today?
Hi, Keith. I'm great. How are you? Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thrilled to be here.
Well, Keith, I know it's been a few months, I think, since we've last spoken, and your story, whenever my jaw was, you couldn't obviously see me, we were on the phone, but
right.
You just kept on going with the cancer, and I just have never heard anyone who's just done such a battle with cancer like you. Would you kind of just do a little recap for our audience who haven't had the pleasure of hearing you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, Keith.
I am a three-time cancer survivor.
Wow.
In 2018, September of 2018 to be specific, I had successful prostate cancer surgery, and I thought doctor said it was completely successful. I was in the clear, cancer-free, etc. And then in a subsequent lab test, it was determined I had high levels of protein in my blood, was sent to a hematologist, didn't know what that was, but I was told I had multiple myeloma, which is a rare blood cancer that is treatable but not curable at this time. And I've been in treatment for that for almost 2.5 years. I've been in remission for almost 2 years and was feeling wonderful. Have a great set of doctors and nurses, and it was humming right along. And again, you can live with it for a long time. I've talked to people who lived with it for 31 years. But then recently I had a lump on the back of my neck, and it turned out that was melanoma. So now I have multiple myeloma and melanoma.
Oh my goodness.
I just had melanoma surgery on October 14th. It was very successful. I am in treatment now for both the melanoma and the multiple myeloma. And as a matter of fact, we're starting a new series of treatments once we get back from our well-deserved, well-earned vacation in a couple of weeks. So,
wow,
we're battling daily, and quality of life at this point in time is excellent. I'm back in the gym every morning at 0400 hours.
Oh my gosh!
I do an hour to keep the health going, keep the wolves at bay, so to speak. And I feel really great. We're take it one day at a time. We're getting the best possible treatment. And it's been certainly a challenging and very interesting journey. But I feel very good about where we are in the treatment cycle, and I feel great about the future.
How long have you been battling this? I forgot what you said. It's like I said, it's been a few months. How long has this been going on,
let's see,
Keith?
September of 2018, 21. It's just a little over 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like I say, it's been an interesting challenge, but I owe a lot to my great medical staff, doctors and nurses, and most of all, my lovely wife, Susan, who's not only stuck with me, but has been my primary caregiver since my next closest relative is 1,000 miles away. And she even wrote a piece on caregiving that's in my newest book.
Go ahead and plug that book, Keith.
Yes.
Please plug that book.
My newest book is called On the Road to Remission. That's my 4th book, and it's become very popular, very successful. Like I say, it has an addendum from Susan on giving care, and addendum from my myeloma coaching director, Rosalind Height. And as I said, it's my 4th book. I've written a lot of short stories as well. And it's great therapy for me. And that's part of the reason why I write. Another part of the reason why I write is to leave a legacy for my grandsons, my two grandsons back in Boston, so they will know that you can overcome life's bumps in the roads.
And how has having the support system help you just navigate through such a horrific disease?
It's been wonderful. Like I say, doctors and nurses are great. We go to Northside Hospital in Atlanta for my surgeries, and I have been very blessed to have the three best surgeons on planet Earth. Nurses are great down there, very friendly, incredibly helpful. Family, my son, daughter-in-law, and my two grandsons back in Boston. My sister's back in Boston, and they keep in touch. We do FaceTime all the time, and lots of texts and lots of phone calls. And Susan, I just can't say enough about the support and the care that she has given me. And if I even think about wanting to be a little maybe down in the dumps for a day or a morning or what have you, she brings me right back to reality, brings me back up.
Has this affected your relationship with her, being the caretaker? I know I watched it with my grandparents, and that can really take a toll once you become more medical and clinical in relationship. Yeah. So it's
made it stronger. I mean, it was strong to begin with, but she's used to going through medical travails with me. When we first met, 6 months after we first met, I had a second brain surgery. So she had to nurse me through that too.
Wow.
But I mean, other than that, you've been a picture of health, right, Keith? Is that
what? Well, let's see. For about 42 years, I was good. 2 brain surgeries. I was good for another 20, and then the cancer hit. But
what's that like when the doctor walks into the room and says, "Sir, we've got some unpleasant news for you," and they just drop that bomb on you? Can you elaborate what that's like? I've never gone through it.
Well, I'm used to it now, as it's been 3 times. But the first time it was done over the phone, my urologist said, we were sitting there at lunch, and I just knew when the phone rang that it was bad news. And the expression on my face, I practically dropped the phone. And Susan was just about to grab the phone from me, and I composed myself. And he said, "You do have cancer. We caught it early, and here are your options." And I said, "I want the surgery. I want it out of me." But the second and third time, you kind of almost steel yourself for whatever's going to happen. Fortunately, in addition to having Susan with me the second go around, we had a very dear friend of ours, Angie Catone, who is the assistant director of oncology at our local hospital. And she came with Susan and I, and was able to encourage us and translate the medical terminology into layman's terms so we would better understand it. And, the doctor was very positive about living a long life, even though there is no known cure for the multiple myeloma.
Oh.
I tell you what, let me segue into some of the books you were discussing.
Sure,
now
sure.
that I remember you remember talking about that a little bit when we spoke. Yeah. Are those self-published? Are you with you're self-published?
Yes. Kindle Direct Publishing, they're self-published through there, and they're an arm of Amazon. They're an Amazon company. So when you self-publish through them, you get it on Kindle, on Amazon, and since 70% of the world's books are bought on Amazon, that's the end goal anyway. But you have total control of the process. If somebody finds a comma missing, you can pull it off and put the comma back on and just republish it in like a couple of days or so. But it's been an interesting experience. I've written stories for them. I just wrote a new story for them on Kindle Vella, which is their short story division. And it's been a real thrill, seeing your name up on Amazon. It's a real kick.
Sure.
I bet.
And when you get an email from a customer that says, and I've got one recently that says, "You have written a great book," that really starts your day off well and really warms your heart. It's been a lot of fun.
Let me ask you this. Have you thought about podcasting yourself?
It's funny you should ask. I just found a page called, I think it was like podcast.com or something like that. And I bookmarked it and I've saved it, and I'm going to look into it when we get back from the beach. We're going down the beach for 2 weeks for some heavy duty walking on the surf and fishing. And what have you. Yeah. Can't wait. We're going to St. Simon's Island, and that's when we're not going back to Massachusetts to see the kids, that's our second favorite destination.
I hear you on that. Because I'm thinking, I'd like to see you do a podcast. I know we had talked about what we do here. We pitch people for television shows, but I'm thinking right now, Keith, you would be more conducive for a podcast. Mm-hmm. Build that up, see what kind of traction you get from that. Sure. And then let's consider seeing what kind of show we could pitch, because I do love your story. I just don't know that there's enough right now. I had the same problem with Megan. Megan's got an incredible story too that I wanted to pitch, but the production companies, we can never just get the right angle. And yours is kind of like hers. It's just a tricky subject. And that's why I think you starting with a podcast, that could be a good way to just generate your name. And you've already got some books written, so you could maybe work in what are all of your books about? Can you give us just a brief synopsis of the books?
The first one's called Confessions of a Beantown Sports Junkie. It's back when we lived in Boston, and it's my story about my playing days, football and hockey, my coaching days, and being an avid Boston sports fan, which I don't know if you can see my sweatshirt, but
yes,
it's a Bruins champion.
There we go. There we go.
Championship sweatshirt. The second one is a sequel, but it's more family oriented. It's about almost a love story between my late father and myself, who was my biggest supporter and my coach, and was very involved, went to every practice and game, but never was one of those parents who got over involved and started yelling at the umpire, yelling at the coach, Jimmy's not playing enough, et cetera, et cetera. My third book is called Overcoming the Odds, and that introduces my first 2 cancer diagnoses. And it also talks about my recovery from the brain surgery and my successful battle with morbid obesity. And then, as I mentioned, the fourth book is called On the Road to Remission, and it's about my multiple myeloma, my 1.5-year journey with that. So,
and that's why I texted you, I don't know what, maybe a month and a half ago, because I knew there was a company, was it TLC? I can't remember. It was one of the networks that were looking for people who are 5 and change. And that's why I reached back out to you, because if you had weighed 5 bills or more, I could have pitched you for this show that they wanted. But how much weight have you lost? That's great, but I forget how much it was, Keith.
155 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's survivor story is just amazing, Megan. I knew you would dig it.
This is such a story. Forgive me, Grace. That's why I'm keeping a little bit quiet.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to ask Megan, what is your story?
So I am a survivor of the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting. So I know a little bit about balancing, and I think you talk about it in your book a little bit, kind of balancing the grief and the faith. How do you do that yourself? Because I just cannot imagine going through not once, not twice, but 3 times hearing that same thing, and you still have such a great attitude and outlook and saying that you feel so great. How do you balance that? How do you keep that faith?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of things. It's just my nature to be positive. It's a friend who was a doctor said, you will have a better outcome if you are positive, and especially if you're positive in, the medical environment, whether it be doctors or nurses or what have you. It's being pragmatic. And Susan has a book on her table that I see every morning when I get up and I walk to the kitchen. It says, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. And I believe that to be true.
I think you're living proof, Keith.
Absolutely.
Well, when I wake up in the morning, I do 3 things. I look to the sky and I thank God for another day on this wonderful planet. I roll over and kiss my wife and tell her I love her. And I pick up my spoiled little 4-foot adopted doggie and tell her that I love her also and give her a big hug.
I love it. So you start the day out right. I love it.
And then I hit the gym. Before, I do that intentionally before I have a chance to talk myself out of it.
Agreed.
I'm on the bike. I'm on the bike, the stationary bike, rowing before I have a chance to say, "Oh, I'm not doing this today," or "I'm not awake enough." And I feel like with the cancer, I almost don't even have a choice, to keep my body in tune, in shape, keep the weight off. As a former athlete, hockey and football player, it's a little easier for me to get into the rhythm of it. And, I feel proud of the fact that in the 8 years that we've lived here, when the gym has been open and not been closed for COVID, I've almost never missed a weekday, unless, of course, we were traveling. But
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Keith, do you mind if I do a little probing for just a second? I'm curious about your inner voice. It's something that I've been dealing with a lot more focus in my life about what that little voice tells you. And for about the past year, I've really tried to hone it and make it a much more positive inner voice than I have in my past. What is your little voice, your inner voice, telling you these days?
Well, a couple things. Number one, it says, be resilient, be relentless. And as I tell, I'm a myeloma coach, as I tell my patients, you have to, and I know it's difficult sometimes, you have to cultivate and maintain a positive mental attitude. And that helps you in so many ways. But my inner voice says, every day that I'm not feeling my best, down in the dumps, depressed, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it, is a wasted day. And there are too few days in our lifetime. You have to be positive. And yes, there are some days it's more difficult than others, but I just, I look at Susan, I look at our dog, I look at our, dream house on the lake. I've got all the boxes checked, so to speak, on my bucket list, or at least most of them, and the important ones. So
now, what do you do when the negative voice, because it happens to all of us, what do you do when the negative voice seeps into your thoughts? How do you combat that?
I go over the gym and pump some iron.
If it worked for Arnold, it can work for you, right?
Yeah, really. Well, we're in a little bit different class category when it comes to pumping iron. But
well, he's still aspiring to be you, I'm sure. So there's that. Well, let me ask you this. What kind of characteristics or attributes could you not see yourself living without?
Well, just being relentless.
I love that, by the way. I love that your inner voice tells you to be relentless. I love that.
I do too. Being positive and always pushing forward and always looking at the positive aspects and, just looking around and seeing how fortunate we are, and I am. I don't even know. I can't even begin to tell you what I would do if I don't have Susan, with me through this journey. And she's been a trooper, And when I say that she is the strongest woman I've ever known, she kind of makes a face like, "No, I'm not," but she really is. And
she just doesn't know it.
Yeah. I've known some strong women, my late mother, my sister, and on and on. But it's just been an interesting journey. And I'm definitely going to take you up on your suggestion, Ted, and try a podcast and see what happens.
And Keith, we'll talk more about that because we're working on a couple of things that I won't get onto on the air, but I'll get back in touch with you.
Sure, absolutely.
So that we'd like to be a part of that too, because like I say, Megan and I, we love your story. We love you. You're an incredible person, Keith.
Well,
you know what? Let's just close with this then, since you've been someone who's fought tooth and nail for life. If today were your last day, Keith, what would you want your last words to be?
I love you. To my wife and my son and my 2 grandsons.
Those are good ones.
Yeah.
Megan, why don't you go ahead and get us out of here? Thank you, Keith.
Yes, absolutely. Keith, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Your story is
Megan.
so powerful. I love it. I'm going to put Be Relentless up on my own wall because I think it's such
Good
an
for you.
important thing in life and love and health and everything. It's important. If anybody else has a story that they want to share, we are always here, always listening to new ideas. We are at Pitch Me the Podcast. The is in the middle there on Facebook and Instagram. You can always email us too at pitchmethepodcast@gmail.com. Keith, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
It was our
Stay
pleasure.
positive.
Truly.
Stay positive.